So we're just going to finish off today with 2 more sessions, and then we'll put the QR code at the end again. If there's any questions you want, we'll see how much time we have for questions. Otherwise, we can get that to you via email if we don't get through everything.
Perfect. Okay. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a good little break from all the information. Okay, so now what I kind of want to talk to you guys about is our program and kind of how it works, how it started. We can do the first slide. So our program started out of the necessity of one of our pastors. He was a children's pastor at the time. And when his son was 2, he was diagnosed with autism. And as I mentioned before, prior to that, he was social, he was verbal, he expressed emotions, he gave eye contact, he responded to his name. And then around the age of 2, he started regressing. And so he was no longer doing any of those things. So they took him in and they got the diagnosis of autism. Well, at that time, they knew nothing about autism. And the prognosis that the doctor gave him was, his name is Connor. Connor was not going to learn. He was not going to speak. Connor was not going to probably do well in school, finish school. Connor was never going to be able to live on his own. Connor was never going to really be a productive person, a productive citizen. And so, Pastor Craig, obviously, as he's a dad, and, he struggled. And and when his son got a little bit older, he started having a lot of behaviors, a lot of aggressive behaviors. And so he, had a conversation with God. Like, he wasn't questioning God as to why his son was, diagnosed with autism. He was questioning God. It's like, why is my son struggling? What is happening? And so, and God literally told him, it's because you're looking at everything that's wrong with him. I'm looking at everything that's right with him. And that God specifically told him, I'm going to use your son to reach millions of people. And, Pastor Craig, he's like, my son can't even ask for a glass of water. How is he going to impact millions of people? And then he said he heard God very clearly ask him, do you trust me? And he's like, God, you're all I have. You're all I have. And so after that conversation, he really felt like, okay, things are going to change. It's going to be great. And no, they got worse. Things got worse. Connor continued to be aggressive and again, not verbal or anything. And then one night he comes home and his wife, Samantha, he's like, Craig, you got to come see this. You got to come see this. And he's like, what? What's going on? He didn't know. So he goes into Connor's room, and then Sam's like, Connor, tell Daddy. Now tell Daddy, right? He's not verbal. And then Connor continues and starts saying, and this is a declaration we do at our church. He starts, this is my Bible. It says what it says I am. It has what it says. I can do what it says I can do. Today I'll be taught the word of God. I boldly confess. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. I'm about to receive the incorruptible, indestructible, ever-living seed of the word of God. I will never be the same. Never, never, never. I will never be the same in Jesus' name. Those were his first words. So what Pastor Craig didn't know is that at that time, they gave CDs out of the messages. And so our pastor, although the messages changed, that declaration never changed. And so what Connor was doing, he was taking these these CDs and DVDs home and playing them over and over. So, what Pastor Craig says, they're huge Disney fans. Like, they go to Disney all the time. And Connor could have learned anything on Disney, could have mimicked anything, but he spoke that declaration over himself. So when Pastor Joel heard about it, he asked Pastor Craig, like, do you mind if I share his story in one of my messages? He's like, sure. So he actually brought Connor on, and Connor said the declaration in front of everybody. Well, that message went out to millions of people. And that is how the program started. So God was true to his word. He used his son, even though he was not verbal and even though he could not communicate, to start this program. So, and so now, and I have not, and yesterday I forgot to tell you, so Connor is now 21. Connor has graduated high school. Connor lives in a home with other roommates. Connor cooks for himself. He cleans after himself, takes care of himself. Connor has a job. So, you know, whatever the doctors say, you know, they're limited in what they know. But, you know, we also know that we serve a God that nothing is impossible. And so you know, and all of this, you know, Pastor Craig's dream was to create a program. And through all of that, you know, before, well, right after Connor kind of got his speech, he was also walking through our halls, and, you know, and God specifically told him, look what you're doing for kids' church. And it was beautiful. It was animation, everything. He said, but look what you're doing for special needs, which at the time we had 2 classrooms, which is great. We had 2 classrooms, but honestly, we were just trying to stay alive, basically. Our kids were running rampant. There was no ministry going on. We were just trying to keep everybody alive. We just wanted the kids to be okay by the time parents came to pick them up. But he knew we could do so much more. Like, we have them 2 hours a week. We could do something. So he met with leading doctors that were studying autism. He met with school administrators of schools that, you know, had children with at that time it was autism. His focus obviously was autism. And because there was so little that was known about it. And then he met with parents. He met with, you know, people just like you, and to come up with a comprehensive, holistic program that was going to be able to minister to the mind, body, and soul. So that's how Champions Club got birthed. And so now we have about 120 Champions Clubs in about 25 countries. And so this program, it's really adaptable. This program can be placed in any setting. Not only do we have Champions Clubs in churches, obviously, but we have them in hospitals, we have them in community centers, we have them in orphanages. Anywhere where the needs of children with special needs are met, this program can be put in place. So I'm just kind of go over a little bit about what the program entails. You can go to the next slide. So obviously, Champions Club is a special needs ministry that focuses on ministering to children, teens, and adults with special needs, and the medically fragile. And this is just kind of, you know, some of my kids in some of the rooms that we have. Okay, you can go to the next slide. We have 4 specific areas that we focus on, 4 components of the program. There's a spiritual development, which obviously for us is the most important. We have a sensory development. We have physical, and then we have what is called the creative learning. That's the educational piece of it, of the program. And you know, and in some countries that we go into, education isn't an option for our kids. You know, they're left at home. There's not a place. So this component of the program gives you that opportunity to start teaching, to start presenting, and you know, different lessons and a different way for them to learn in the manner that they learn. Okay, so the next slide you can go into. Okay, so this is kind of the picture on the left. Yes, on the left, that's what my spiritual development room looks like. So in here we do, like I mentioned earlier, we do praise and worship. We do our Bible story. We do an activity. Kids get their snack there. We also created a curriculum specifically for this program. So the curriculum is, you know, we created it to be very simple. We created it with you guys in mind. You know, you don't need to be a scholar. You don't need to be a teacher. We created it so simple that anybody can pick it up and teach it. So for us, this is the most important room. I need to make sure that when my kids come into this classroom, they're going to be able to understand what I'm teaching, grasp the concepts, and be able to participate. So I need to do whatever I can to get them into this classroom and able to receive. The next one. Okay, sensory development. The one on top is what our sensory room looks like. So obviously this is a multi-sensory environment, meaning everything I have in that room appeals to their senses. And so like the bubble tube in the corner, it gently vibrates. So if my kids want to hug it, they feel that tactile feedback. There's mats so the kids can lay on the floor. I have weighted blankets. The fiber optic that is like a fiber optic spray, those are my kids that need that tactile feedback that I told you sometimes they just need that compression. They love sitting under it. It's not weighted, but it just gives you the sense of something being on you. I have a lot of like stuffed animals that vibrate. So anything that appeals to the senses, we work on. The activity that we wrote for the curriculum in this space, it's a tangible activity. It's something that they're going to be able to feel, touch, smell. They're going to be able to learn using their senses and identifying their senses, identifying their emotions. When we do an activity, we ask them, how does this make you feel? So helping them identify those emotions. This also is a great room to help them, regulate their behaviors. We are considered a self-contained ministry, right? Meaning I have control of everything in there. I have control over each space. Our church is not a community church. Most of the people that attend our church have to commute. And most of my kids are probably strapped in car seats from anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So you can imagine when they come in, the amount of sensory input that they've had to endure. So when they come to me, the last thing I want to do is put them in a classroom and ask them to sit down and do work. Or ask them to go and, be with the neurotypical kids and do praise and worship. They just can't do it. So having this space allows me the opportunity to control that environment. And I can remove the things that are actually increasing the anxiety in them. So once they come into my space, they no longer hear what's going on outside. They no longer see all the movement, all the people. I can bring lights down. I can turn things on. I can turn things off. Whatever the case may be, I have that ability. And so when they come in, I already know which one of my kids need this room first. And they get the room first. So then I start bringing them down. I start calming them down and bringing everything down to their level. Then they may be ready to go into sensory after that because they've already kind of regulated not only their behaviors but their emotions. And they may be ready now to sit and be able to do a lesson. You can go to the next one. The next one we have is our physical development. So the one on the right is my room. And that rocker is the one with the weighted blanket. That's the one I was explaining earlier with my kid that I just I wrap him up in that and put him on there, and he loves it. But this is our movement room. This is where I want to promote movement. So for my kids that have like a dual diagnosis and maybe have autism and ADHD, which I have quite a few of those, well, guess what? They've been strapped in car seats for 30 minutes to an hour. So what is happening with their energy? It is busting at the seams. So if I ask them to come in and sit down and do an activity, absolutely impossible. I can't expect them to do that. But I will tell them to go in here, and I will encourage that movement. Get on the trampoline, tumble, crawl, do whatever you need to do to exert that energy. And so they get to spend time in there. Then I may move them over to the sensory room, start bringing them down, and then they'll be ready for the instructional phases or the components of the curriculum. In here, also part of the curriculum is we have an exercise activity. We have like we created a puzzle. Each puzzle piece has activities, some sort of exercise that they're going to do. And we take into account that some kids may not physically be able to do an exercise. So if you have a child that has CP, then you know what, his activity may be blink 10 times. Or, wiggle your fingers or whatever you can. We adapt it to the level that the child can do. And the important thing for us is that we want them to be successful. So we're going to gauge it based on, what they can do. But each child will remove a puzzle piece. Everybody will do the exercise. And then after that, the puzzle, once all the pieces are removed, it reveals the memory verse. So then everybody kind of says a memory verse. So we include that. It's so that the kids just don't go in and think it's, fair play, right? We get to play for 30 whole minutes. No, we're going to do an exercise and an activity, and then they get to take advantage of the room. That basket right there is the one I was telling you in the middle. Even though there's a lot of things going on around the basket, when the kids go in there, they still feel that calmness. And so that's a really, really important part of it. And the next screen. So the next one, this is what we call our creative learning. So as you can see with the spiritual development and the creative learning, they look like pretty typical classrooms. There's nothing in there that says special needs. I have tables, I have little stools, I have books, I have bean bags, I have the iPads, but nothing in there screams special needs. So this what I like to call the instructional part of the component. And we call it creative learning is because the activities that we have in there, we wanted to introduce different ways that the kids learn. One of the things that we do is we do not expect the kids to learn like we teach. We teach the way they learn. And that's a big difference. So I don't, we don't stand at the front of the room and say, everybody get out your pencils and everybody do this and everybody do that. No, we work with them individual based on the support that they need. Some kids can do it on their own, but then many are gonna need hand over hand, or many, may need the lesson a little bit simplified. Or some of them may need it a little bit challenging. That's the kind of the beauty of the program and the curriculum is that you can manipulate it that way. So in here, yes, they have to do their activities. Then they can take advantage of, on the other side that you don't see, I have a whole bookcase full of Legos and, things like this that they can use for their fine motor skills. I have like magnetic boards that they have to hold a little pencil and move, the different little objects that are inside the board. So again, working with their fine motor skills, where in the movement room, I'm working with their gross motor skills. So it's still, something that, is part of the curriculum. There's content in there so that you don't have to figure out like, okay, what do I do now? Okay, next slide. So this is our curriculum. So we designed the curriculum to work within the Champions Club model. And it's focused on ministry and written to be used by volunteers without any professional experience. Because we know, like I said, I'm looking for people who have a heart to serve. I'm not necessarily looking for teachers. So if you have a heart to serve, you can teach this curriculum. It's so, so simple. We literally tell you what to say, what to get, how to put it together. I mean, everything is included in this curriculum. There's clear and easy to follow instructions. We make it super, super simple. The activities are for all cognitive levels in all stations. So you have the ability to adjust those activities based on the level of that child. So again, you have higher functioning kids that are like super smart. I make it super challenging for my kids. If they need it simplified, I make it super simple. But it does give you the ability to do it. And then the other thing that we do is we include some life skill activities for the kids. So and this curriculum right now is for our 4 to 12-year-olds. We're working on our curriculum for our teens and adults. So like some of the life skill activities that we're teaching our kids are how to tie a shoe, how to button a shirt, how to zip a shirt, we even have like how to tell time, just different life skill activities that's necessary for them to learn. But what we do is we don't just present it 1 week. We give them at least, I think it's 8 weeks. We present the same activity, life skill activity, for 8 weeks. And that's kind of our goal, so that they're able to master that within the 8 weeks. The other thing that we do in our creative learning portion of it is we created, one of the things is our kids never get celebrated. They never get celebrated. They never, and again, I'm talking U.S., right? When my parents go pick up their kids, they're told what their child didn't do, what their child couldn't accomplish, what the child did wrong, how many times the child got in trouble. Everything is negative, every single thing. They're never able to accomplish anything according to the school system, unfortunately. So we wanted to change that. So what we did is we created certificates. So after each unit, we do a celebration for our kids, and every child receives a certificate of accomplishment, that they accomplished it. The other thing that we did in our creative learning is, in addition to the life skill activities, we came up with some creative learning activities. And these are activities where we hope to discover maybe some hidden gifts or talents in a child. And we're never going to know unless we present them, to them. We're never going to know if they like to draw or they like to paint if we never give them a piece of paper and a pencil or colors. And so we put in like 10 different ideas of, to present, to give that child the opportunity to do the activity and see if there's something. One of my favorites is we do painting. So I buy these small little, canvases for each child. And every week we give them for 8 weeks, we give them a different color. And they get to paint. Some kids, are just gonna do this, and that's fine, Others, take the time and they'll draw a flower, or they'll, they really look at what they're doing. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, we just kind of, by that time we'll know, like, oh, this one, he liked it. Like he was purposeful in his painting. And so we celebrate him, and he gets a special little ribbon. All of our kids that were able to master a life skill will get a ribbon, of accomplishment. So that's, for us, celebrating them is very, very important. And we make a celebration. Like that day, there's not going to be any Bible story lessons or anything. It's just celebration. I buy pizza or, whatever they want so that, because it's different. I want them to be able to enjoy it and be able to work toward that accomplishment. To the right, no, to your left over here, is our Bible sheet. Oh yeah, go back. So what we did with the coloring sheet is, this one is, I think it's our first unit, like when we're talking about creation. So we have something that kind of symbolizes, and we try to summarize the Bible story. But on the back side, we have a Dear Parent letter. And on that back side, we're like, Dear Parent, today your child learned about creation. And then we give the whole Bible story for the parent. And then I even add additional questions like, review these with your children. And what I've gotten from parents? It's like, thank you so much, because I'm learning. Like, I didn't realize this about, they pray and, and they may be somewhat understanding of some of the Bible stories, but not, most of them don't know all of the more popular Bible stories. And what we did is we have 4 units in our curriculum. The first 2 units deal with Old Testament, and then the second 2 units are New Testament. And then there's 5 units in total. 1 unit is what we call our holiday lessons. So, and again, U.S. holidays. But, we have, one of them is baptism. That's important. So right around the time that we do our baptisms, we start teaching about baptism. And we include that lesson. The other thing that we do is every lesson we present it twice. So the first week we introduce it, the second week we reinforce it. And reinforcement is super, super important. And not only does it help, for them, it helps them kind of, retain the information, but it helps them feel successful. Because the second week when we ask the same question, guess what? They know the answer. And they feel successful at it. So, and then, we attack it from different ways. That's why, because we understand that we all just don't learn one way, right? Some of us are more visual. Some of us just learn based on reading or retaining information. We're all different. So what we do is we try to, we make it visual. We make it for them to do it through an actual activity, something tangible. Reading. So we kind of combine all of that to help them really grasp and retain the information. Next to the certificates, you can see the little emotion cards. So when I talk about helping them identify their emotions, that's what we do. We present little cards with the different faces of the emotions, and we ask them, okay, show me your happy face. And if they can't really make the expression, they can pick up the card. As long as they can identify it, that's the important thing. So, we have all of that included on there. As far as support, you can go to the next slide. So as far as support, like if you want to start a Champions Club, we provide all kinds of support. We can design your space. We can definitely help you, implement the ministry in the way that, you are able to based on, your size and all of that. We obviously have the curriculum. We can help with behavior training. We also offer a free sample lesson of the curriculum if that's something that you're interested in, would want to see it and see that something that, it would work. We offer that as well. Next slide. So a lot of people will ask me, well, how do I start? How can I start this? Well, it's pretty easy. There's 3 steps that I ask to do, is determine your need. You want to know who are you going to be ministering to. Most of the time, you either already have, there's already families in your church, or wherever you're at that need the help, or maybe somebody has inquired. Like, do you guys have a special needs ministry, or do you take kids with special needs? Once you kind of determine the need, then the next thing would be to identify your space. How much space would you be able to dedicate toward it? I have some churches that have temporary spaces, and they have to set up and tear down every week. But that's kind of where we come along and we help. Then third is you want to establish a budget. The rooms that you saw that we have, we didn't start off that way. We didn't start off with like all of this stuff. I first identified, okay, you know what? I have little Johnny here, and I know Johnny needs a lot of, sensory input. So guess what I'm doing? I'm getting weighted blankets. I'm getting a lot of textured items that he can touch, feel, smell. So I kind of did that around, one of the kids that I could identify. Later on, as I started seeing more families, because prior to having this program, we had about 6 kids. And, 6 kids in one room is a lot. 6 of our kids is a lot. But when we started the program and it was announced, we grew from 6 to like 300 families. So we knew that we needed more. I couldn't just format it around little Johnny here. I had a lot of Johnnies and a lot of needs. So that's why we kind of went more broader and like, okay, you know what? A bubble tube is going to appeal to multiple diagnosis. Having mats is going to appeal to multiple diagnosis. Fiber optics. So then we kind of went more general into the things that we felt would appeal to more kids. And so that's kind of where, you know, we ended up. I kind of want to leave you my contact information in case any of you have, if we can't get to your questions today, or if you are needing more information, that's my direct email address. The website on the bottom, actually, you can go on that website and it kind of gives you information on kind of what I went over on our program. It also, that is where you can also download the free sample of the curriculum. The other thing that we have is we have kind of an online portal where we've uploaded a lot of videos. We have videos, we have curriculum training videos, we have behavioral, we have leadership, we have resources, like a lot of information. Basically, what I thought of when we were creating this is I wanted to upload content that I wish I had when I started this, because we had nothing and I had nowhere to go. Like, we literally had to create this stuff based on the needs. But I wanted to approach it and say, you know what, if I had this information, it would have helped me. And so we kind of formulated and formed it based on that. So you have the opportunity to kind of look at that content as well on this website. Okay, so I think we can go now to, this is the one that I really want to go over and spend a little bit more time. I want to talk about behaviors, because this is kind of a big component of a special needs ministry, because behaviors are going to happen. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen, because it's going to happen. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. Okay, so the first thing to do is we need to kind of understand, like, what is a behavior? What would constitute a behavior? Well, a behavior is, okay, so I'm going to talk about what is a behavior. I'm going to talk about why it's important that we study behavior. I'm going to talk about what are some of the different types of behavior. And I'm calling this kind of the basics of behavior. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what is a behavior? A behavior is something that's measurable, right? And it's something that we can actually see. It's something that is visible and something we can see. Some typical examples of behaviors are, you know, walking, jumping, playing. These are considered, you know, good behaviors, typical behaviors, right? And these behaviors, they're still behaviors. And this is when we should be rewarding. I know I talked a little bit about it last night, and that's what I want to go over today. We really should be rewarding our kids when they are, you know, doing something right. I am very, very guilty of this. You know, when my son was young, I don't really remember, you know, praising him for, you know, when he was doing good. It was always, don't do that, don't go over there, don't go in there, stop this. Everything was a correction. And so it's, you know, it's no wonder that a lot of kids pick that up and realize, oh, okay, so if I jump over here, I'm going to get the attention that I want. And so it's just very, very important that, you know, that we address the good behaviors as well, that we acknowledge the good behaviors, that we praise them. However, and it doesn't have to be anything tangible, just words. Great job, high five, you know, good job, buddy. You know, something to encourage the good behavior. Negative behaviors can be your hitting, your kicking, biting. Those behaviors should be redirected. Okay, notice I didn't say addressed. I didn't say to stop, I said redirect. Positive behavior should equal to rewards, and negative behavior should equal consequences, okay? Positive behavior leads to future behavior. So, let me see. So what do I mean when I say that it needs to be, like, negative behavior, you don't ever want to focus on it. You know, if, you know, there's going to be behaviors that you can't ignore. But basically, I'm telling you to ignore it, is what I'm telling you to do. If there's a child and he's thrown himself on the ground and he's kicking and screaming, you have to ignore it. And I'll tell you what I told them last night. You want to give attention to the behavior you want increased. It's a paradigm shift for us because we're so focused on, don't do that, stop yelling, don't scream anymore. If you keep doing it, you're not going to get what you want. All we're doing is we are reinforcing that behavior. We're telling the child that if you do that, you get all the attention that you're probably looking for. And those are behaviors that we actually created. So, you know, but we know that there's behaviors that you have to address. And, you know, I told them last night, you know, I had a little girl that she liked to take off her clothes. I cannot ignore that behavior. I absolutely cannot ignore that behavior. But there's a way that I can address the behavior without giving attention to the behavior. And so what I did is, I could identify that it was attention-seeking behavior. Because she knew already in the past, when I take off my clothes, guess what I get? Attention. Somebody comes over, somebody physically touches me, speaking to me, telling me I got their full attention, as she should, right? But what they have done is they actually created the behavior and make the behavior worse. So we had to attack it a different way. So basically, what I told them last night is, you know, I sat next to her, and she started with her shirt. And this is, you know, this is behavior that was going on at home. And why do I know that? Because mom would layer her up. She had like 3 layers of clothes because mom knew. So I knew that it wasn't being addressed at home either. So what did I do? So even, you know, verbally, if we, you know, verbalize something to a child, obviously we're giving them their attention. Do you know that eye contact is the same thing? If you look at a child in the eye, you've already reinforced that behavior. So what I did is, she literally was sitting next to me. I turned my body around, and I was putting her shirt down, but my face was this way. And I was addressing another little boy on this side, and I was reinforcing him. And I was telling him, like, oh, great job keeping your shirt on. I love the way you keep your shirt on. That's what we all should be doing. Great job. At the same time, I'm struggling over here trying to keep her clothes on. But I kept doing it. And so what she learned, and quickly learned, and she's like, wait a minute, he's taking the attention that I want. So guess what she did? She let go of her shirt, and she was no longer lifting it. The moment she did that, I turned around and I reinforced her. Great job. Love the way you're keeping your shirt. Never once did I tell her, we need to keep your shirt on. Don't take your shirt off. Don't do this. I never addressed the behavior. I immediately went to the positive behavior. And so what was happening with her is that she wasn't being engaged enough. So when she got bored, she wanted attention. And how did she get attention? By taking her clothes off. And when she took her clothes off, she got all the attention she wanted. So we then, you know, started teaching mom that as well, like, you gotta keep her engaged. And the behavior stopped. But the moment that she would get bored, and she knew, like, okay, no one's paying attention to me, I'm not getting the praise, I'm gonna start acting out. So we knew we had to continuously keep her engaged and continually praise her. And as we were doing that, the behavior went away, because we constantly did that. So those are, you know, runners. They're the same thing. You can't let a child run out the classroom and ignore that behavior. You cannot. I've had plenty of them. And I remember one little boy, he ran out, And then he turned around and he looked at me because he knew I was going to run after him. He knew I had to, right? But I did not laugh. I eventually caught him. I didn't say a word to him. I didn't give him any eye contact. I just brought him back. And then I went over the top and reinforced all the other kids, like over the top. And he kept, like, at first, he wanted to kind of, because he came in and said one of the teachers had to stand at the door because he wanted to go out because it was a game now. I got her to chase me, so it's game on is basically what he said. So I went and I started like, and he's trying to go out the door, but she's in front of it. So I'm over here really reinforcing these kids. You guys did a great job staying in the classroom. Oh my gosh, love you guys, high five, all this. We're gonna do something fun. Well, when he saw that, he's like, wait a minute, why are they having fun and I'm over here? So then he wanted to be part of the group. So the minute he did that, then I reinforced him. So again, if it's attention seeking, or sometimes they want to escape a task. Sometimes you put a task before them, an activity, and they don't want to do it. Again, you want to, focus on the directive that you're giving them, not them, like, okay, you're going to have to do this, or stop moving around, stop this, stop. No, focus on this is what we got to do. The other thing how many of you have heard of ODD? What ODD is? Okay, ODD is oppositional defiant disorder. So I have a little guy, love him to death, but oh my gosh, does he challenge me? Because, and it's so random. Like he'll come in and he's the most lovable thing in the world, and then we go in and I think this is gonna be a great day, and he sits down, I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this, and he's like, mm-mm. That's all he says. Completely verbal. He can have a full conversation, but he's like, mm-mm. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. Mm-mm. So then I go into, okay, you get two choices. Either you do it by yourself or I help you. That's it. Those are your two choices. You don't get any other choices, meaning you don't get, and he's high functioning enough that he understands. Like, sometimes reinforcers don't work because he understands, like, I'm not going to work for him. My desire to not do the work is higher than me wanting to work for this toy. So I'm just very firm. I'm very adamant. And the first time he did that to me, I want to say it probably took me about an hour and a half of sitting with him. And those are the only two options he had. And that's all I would say to him. You either do it on your own, or I'm going to help you. Make your choice. You're going to do it on your own, or I'm going to help you. Make your choice. An hour and a half, he finally realized she's not going anywhere. He picked up that pencil, and he went through all the activities. And I probably had about 4 different activities. He went through all of them. And I love his penmanship. It's just so perfect. He did it all. He did it all. He watched all his friends leave and go into the physical development space, and I'm like, you can do it on your own, or I can help you. You can do it on your own, or I can help you. When we finish, we get to go, but you can do it on your own, or I can help you. And that's all I said. I know he got tired of hearing me say it. So he did it, right? He earned his way. Immediately he finished. Great job. Love the way you do it. I love the way you write. He went over. He was great. Next week, I'm like, okay, here he comes again. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So he comes in. But this time, immediately, he comes in. And I figured out his sister drops him off, and she triggers him. Because a lot of times he comes in, and he's already, like, not happy. So he came in, and I already saw it on his face. He comes in like this. And then I'm like, okay, you're ready to, let's go in here. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So again, same thing. Are you going to do it, or am I going to help you? Those are your only choices. Do you know that this time it only took 5 minutes? 5 minutes, and then he did it on his own. Why? Because I was consistent, and he knew, like, she's not going anywhere. Like, let me just get it over with. Let me just do it and get her out of my face. So, but guess what? He was compliant, and he did it. So So these kind of behaviors are just kind of like, sometimes they can be really difficult. They really can. But I can tell you, if you just kind of stay focused and, oh, sorry, I just logged out. Stay focused on the task. Don't give up on them, because they know that they could probably wait you out. And if they realize and you give up on them, they've already won you over. You know what I mean? Like they've won the battle. And it's going to be twice as hard. It's going to take twice as hard for you to get them back on task. So for me, now he knows, you know what, if she walks in the room, it's going to be, am I going to do it by myself, or is she going to help me? So he immediately goes and he does his work, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't come in already, the same way. Because I feel like, and I told Mom, I said, I don't know what happens when Sister drops him off, but he seems to come already agitated. And I think because, Sister probably doesn't have the patience, and he wants something, and guess what Sister tells him? No. I had a child that, oh my gosh, if you said no, you were going to be in big trouble. No was the worst word to tell him. So I had to be very creative in how I would respond to something that he absolutely was not going to get. And I learned my lesson, because I told him no once, and I still have scars to prove it. So I never said that word again. So I had to redirect. And even now, he's older, and he wants to go into the small kids' room because he wants something particular in there. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. You're 17 years old. You don't need to be in a 4-year-old classroom. And so I tell him, he'll tell me, Miss Norma, I want this. And so I'll just like, so how was your weekend, Davy? How was your weekend? What did you do? How was school? And I throw him so many questions that he doesn't even know how to process it, because it's just too much. And he ends up forgetting what he originally asked me. So I already know, because I'm telling you, one time he asked me for the iPad and I told him no, and that was not a good day. So now I'm just like, just redirect him. Or sometimes I ignore him. Like he'll ask me and I just walk away because I'm like, I've already exhausted all the reasons and everything. But he doesn't push, like he used to. He used to push, and he doesn't push anymore. Or sometimes I'll say, let's talk to Mom when she comes to pick you up. Let's talk to Dad, or let's whatever, but redirect. And there's a way to do it without you. For me, I learned how I couldn't say no. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Why is it important we study behavior? One is to avoid creating more negative behaviors. Very important. 2, to gain information. This is helping us to, kind of figure out, what is causing the behavior. How can we possibly, anticipate the behavior. The goal is to actually prevent the behavior. That's kind of our goal, but we need to gather information before we do that. To understand and recognize triggers. Oh, that's so important. Because if there's a trigger in the room and you have not, taken the time to find out what is causing that, and it's in the room, and it's going to keep happening until you start paying attention and gathering that information, like what is that trigger, and if it's possible to remove the trigger. And then to develop appropriate strategies and plans. Very important. And that's, you studying them, understanding what their triggers are, understanding how they work. You're able to formalize a plan for them. Okay, I know little Johnny, he can't have this in the room, and he likes to do this first, but he needs help with this, and then he likes to finish with that. Then that's what you do. There's no reason why you can't move things around as long as the results are positive. Because we know that past behaviors are our best indicators and predictors of future behaviors. So if we don't take the time to study these behaviors and we don't take the time to gain the information that we need, the behavior is going to continue to happen. And that's going to be on us, not on them. Because again, what I talked about earlier, behaviors is a form of communication. And if you don't learn how they communicate, one, you're going to always be frustrated. You're always going to be frustrated. They're always going to be frustrated. And then when the aggressive behavior comes, now you're going to be in a position where, people are getting hurt. And that's what you want to try to avoid. Next slide. Okay, so these are some of the different types of behaviors that kids will exhibit. Attention seeking, meaning they want your attention. They're going to do whatever it takes to get your attention. Oh my gosh, I had one little girl that, I'd walk into the room and I'd need to talk to somebody, and she's like, miss, and I mean constant, and I had to ignore it as like, oh my gosh, I can't concentrate on what I'm saying because she's like right here in my ear, but I had to ignore it. Now, the moment she stopped, then I turned around and I acknowledged her. Great job waiting, I like the way you're waiting for me. Thank you for waiting for me. Then I would, okay, what is it that you need? I had to do that numerous times because, again, it was a behavior that she developed. And obviously it was working at home because she felt very comfortable coming in and tugging at everybody until they got that attention. So you have to learn to ignore it. As irritating as it may be, as hard as it may be, trust me, in the long run, it's going to pay off. Access to tangible things. They want that toy, and they cannot focus until they get that toy. Again, if it's something that can be removed, then you remove it. If it's not, you make them work for it. 3, escape or avoidance. They're trying to escape a task or avoid a task, depending on what the task is. Usually, for my kids, they're trying to avoid doing the work, basically. They just want to play. Well, we're not going to just play. We're actually going to work, and you're going to work too. So it's just, you have to distinguish. Now, again, all of this leads up to you establishing a relationship, building trust, gaining information to know your child. Like, I've had children that come in that normally do work, and then they come in one day and they just don't do it. Well, they're probably not feeling good, and I'm not going to force them to do it. But if I have a child that's consistently not wanting to do work, then I know he's trying to avoid. And so the same thing. Are you going to do it on your own, or am I going to help you? Are you going to do it on your own, or am I going to help you? And you may have to do that for a long time until they get that you're not going away. Because these kids have been, and I don't know if I mentioned it earlier or yesterday, these kids have been accustomed to playing the waiting game really, really well. And they can outweight you. They've been taught that in schools, at home, wherever they go. They've learned that, you know what, if I stick to my guns long enough, you're going to give up. You're going to give in, and I'm going to get my way. You're going to have to be stronger than that. In order for you to see change, you're going to have to outlast them. As much as it's going to pain you, as much as it's going to irritate you, you're going to have to outlast them. I mean, that's just the only way. The last one is sensory stimulation. So again, like I was telling, my little one that would run into the walls or run into me, he was looking for that kind of tactile feedback. And that's okay to deliver that. I mean, it's not, as long as it's not a destructive behavior, as long as they're not being destructive or aggressive, there's ways to deliver it and appropriate times to deliver it. One of my little ones, he would cry a lot. I mean, he would cry, and he would just run into things, and obviously I was never going to be able to get him to sit still to work. So I had to address that. I had to figure out, how am I going to, address the behavior, deliver what he needs in order to calm him. And so once I did that, then I formulated that plan. But what did I do? I observed, I built trust, I gained information, and I formulated a plan, and it equaled success. Okay, so I want to talk about attention seeking. So attention seeking is behavior, is when someone engages in a behavior to gain attention or a response from others. This behavior could manifest as seeking eye contact, talking loudly, engaging in disruptive actions, attention-seeking behaviors driven by the individual's desire for social interaction or acknowledgement from others. So they're going to do whatever it takes to get your response. But if you deliver it at the appropriate times, there will not be a need for them to have to act out negatively. If you deliver it when they're constantly doing good, they're going to get enough of what they need that they don't have to act out. And I'm getting my last nights to today mixed up. I'm not sure if I said it earlier, but all behavior is learned behavior. We did not come out of the womb with these behaviors. All of it is learned behavior. We have the ability to change and shape those behaviors. But what you got to be is you got to be consistent, and you have to have structure. So you have the ability to shape those behaviors, even if they continue those behaviors at home. You know, for me, I can't control what happens at home. I can't control what happens at work, but I can control what happens at church. And once I set those parameters, once I set those boundaries, once I communicate effectively, that child knows that when they're here, this is the expectation. And they will learn. So don't think that they're not going to get it or they don't understand. They do. They just counting that you won't, read into them. Then the next one is access to tangible items. This refers to individuals engaging in a specific behavior to obtain a desired object, activity, or event. This behavior is motivated by the individual's desire for a specific item or the enjoyment of engaging in a particular activity. So, this could be anything. They want to go outside and play. They, want a specific toy. Make sure they earn it. Don't give it to them freely. Whether you're a parent or whether you're, a teacher or you're in a church setting, make them work for it. They are very, very capable of doing that. You just have to set those standards, because if you don't, these kids are too smart for us. They are too smart for us, and they have figured us out way before we figured them out. And they know they can get their way because you're not making the time to invest in them. They get that part. So it's okay to have a tangible thing. It's okay to have a toy. But make sure they earn it and make sure it's appropriately based on what your expectations are. Next one, escape or avoidance. This occurs when someone engages in a specific behavior to avoid or escape from a demand or an undesired situation. This could include tasks they find challenging, social interactions they find overwhelming, or any situation causing discomfort or anxiety. By engaging in an escape or avoidance behavior, the individual seeks relief from the perceived stressor. So there's a couple of things going on in here. If a child is trying to get away from an activity, like doing an activity, there's no reason, like they can't do it, and there's no reason you can't be persistent. Where you want to kind of be careful, and not careful, but you want to take a little bit extra time, is when it talks about, social interactions. Well, you know what? They may have fear of social interactions because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to approach someone. They don't know what to say. They don't know what's appropriate. So this is when we come in and we show them. We explain to them. We model it. I would never want to put somebody in a situation like, nope, you got to do it. You got to go out there on your own. No, I would never want to do that. If they're able to communicate why, then show them. Teach them. This is a teachable moment. And give them the tools that they need to be able to approach that situation. The same thing, if it's causing some sort of discomfort or anxiety, find out why. Try to find out why and help eliminate that. Because I want to prepare my kids for the world. And the world is not going to make exceptions for them. The world is not going to conform to them. So if I can help them through these anxieties on my terms, on their terms, in a safe space, then that's going to benefit them. So even though they're trying to escape or avoid, try to find out why. And like I said, if it's an activity, make them work for it. I would say definitely. But if it's a social situation or something that's causing them anxiety because they don't know how to respond, this is a teachable moment. This is when you can come in, identify what it is, and then base a plan around them and something that they're going to be able to do. Walk them through it. It's probably not going to be done in in an hour or two. This is something that you're going to have to work through, but help them work through those anxieties, because it's going to happen. If they haven't gone to high school or haven't gone to middle school, I don't know what they call it here, but for us it's like a middle school or high school. Those are some pretty heavy times for them. Those are some pretty heavy times, and there's situations there that they don't have the tools to be able to approach or encounter or deal with. That's where we come in. That's where we come in, and that's where we can help them with those. The next one we have is sensory stimulation. Sensory stimulation behavior is driven by someone's need for sensory input or stimulation. Some individuals may engage in repetitive behaviors such as hand flapping, rocking, spinning, to seek that sensory stimulation. These behaviors provide a sense of comfort or regulation for the individual. So again, like I was saying earlier, the flapping, that may bring that self-stimulation, that probably calms them. Observe the behavior. If it's not a big deal and you see that it's not causing any disruption, it's not harming anybody or themselves, it's okay. It's what they need to regulate. If like the mom that told me, I don't want him flapping. Like, help me stop him from flapping, because it's it may be embarrassing for her out there. Then you can come up with a plan of, what else would help him kind of self-stimulate so that he doesn't have to refer to the flapping. But that's something that would be more individual based on, the child and, and mom. Like I said, I spoke to mom and I'm like, is this really, something, is this a battle you want to take on? Because it's really not necessary. Sometimes they may grow out of it. Sometimes it may turn into something else, so you just, at the moment, if it's something that is not that, big of a deal, then I would just let them go ahead and do what they need to do to kind of self-regulate, and it's going to work out best for everybody. Because if you try to stop it, then that's when, it can become a little bit more challenging. Okay, so I think I finished, Justine. Am I doing great or what? So now I want to get to the questions, because I'm sure some of y'all had questions, some more specific questions. I definitely want to leave time for that. And so I know the QR code is up there, and I think some of y'all have already asked questions. So I want to definitely honor your time and be out of here on time.
Okay, so hello, hi. Okay, so we have 4 questions that came from the same school. So there's a assistant learning high school in the area, and it's 2-sided. So how can we teach the educators if they are very strict, and this person says we've tried teaching them better ways of helping the neurodiverse children, but now the teachers are becoming the triggers in the classroom, and the teachers don't want to adapt their teaching styles and how they do it. So that's the one side of the question: how can we motivate the teachers or help them to change? And then the other side is, how can we help the students, because every teacher has a different teaching style. So how can we help the students to adapt to different teaching styles or triggered teachers?
Yeah. So one of the things that's really important, especially when you're in a situation where you have a child that's aggressive and it's intense, right? And it's happened to me a few times, and most of my volunteers it's happened to. But you're in a situation where the child is either being aggressive, or most of the time it's the aggression that is really hard, because they're hitting, they're kicking, they're doing whatever. And I mentioned this last night, that don't take their behavior personal. That's the first thing. Most of the time it has nothing to do with you. If they're trying to avoid a task, it's not because you're in there, it's because they don't want to do it. If you get to a point where it's starting to affect you and impact you, you need to remove yourself from the situation, because you're not doing anybody any good, and you're not going to change the situation. So as far as like these teachers, they're so far in it that they've kind of blocked themselves, you know, and they may need a break, because if you can't go in with like a fresh, composure, and you can't, regulate your own emotions, these kids are going to pick up on it. And I guarantee you will not get anywhere. You will not get anywhere. So sometimes you have to remove yourself from the situation. The second part of it, I think what I mentioned earlier, you need to teach the way they learn, not the way you teach. And so if that's the problem, if the teachers are like, this is the way I teach and you have to learn, you probably won't get very far. You need to understand how do they learn, and then modify your teaching based on that.
So this is just one of my questions while I'm waiting for more questions to come in. Let's say you have a few kids in your class, and the one helps when they hear a sound to calm them down, but that's a trigger for another one in the class. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, you probably have to remove one of them.
Okay.
And I'm not saying remove him from the class, but find a space for him. It's going to be the same thing as, my kids when I explain, I obviously because of the sheer volume of families that I have, I actually dedicate one room to each component. So I actually have 4 rooms, so I can rotate them based on their needs. But yeah, I have kids that need to jump up and down, and I have kids that it needs to be quiet. There's no way that I can put them in the same room. So either, if you don't have the space, then find a quiet space for your other one that he can kind of regulate. And, it could be that he may be able to be reintegrated back, or if this is just kind of how he operates, and you just have to know, what, when he comes in, he's kind of need his own, his own spot, his own area.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So outside of a Champions Club class, let's say it's in a school classroom, how can I best support a child with autism in my class? So it's not a special needs approach, it's just a normal mainstream, but you pick up there is a child that needs extra care. How can I support that child?
I would say based on them is you probably need to modify, the way you're presenting the lessons, and modify the expectation. Again, going back to, you want to teach the way they learn. And I know it's difficult, because if you're in a classroom and, your responsibility is for all the kids, and you can't just focus on one and leave out the other ones. But if the child is, not trying to escape and is not being aggressive, then just give them a different set of activities, or modify the activity that you're doing for them. A lot of times my kids, I will start the activity for them and then let them finish. Or I'll just ask them to do one part of it. Set up those expectations based on, the level of understanding for them, and, don't expect too much, because once you do that, and then they're going to know that they didn't do well. They're going to receive from you. And that's the last thing we want to do. We want to encourage, and, and just set the bar at the level that they're able to meet. And then you raise the bar the next time.
Awesome. So for people interested in starting a curriculum, will they get, like you said, you can help with the design of the room, and what's the minimum people or volunteers you need to start this curriculum in a school or a church setup?
It's really, the curriculum is not really kind of the what you want to look at. You want to look at your kids.
Okay.
You want to look at, what you're working with. The children that need that support, that extra support, should get the support. That means your runners, that means your aggressive ones, Those are the ones that you pretty much want a one-on-one. You want to make sure, because if you put a runner and you put another child together with one teacher and they're trying to teach both of them and that child bolts, what's going to happen? You're going to have to run after that child and you're leaving another child by themselves.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that the children that need the most support is getting that support, and then all the other ones, based on kind of their level of understanding and where they're at, you can group them. I probably wouldn't do more than, I definitely wouldn't do more than 3. 2 would be ideal. 2 kids with 1 teacher. That's kind of the ideal. Honestly, ideal is one-on-one for everybody, because then you'll be able to minister to the individual. But, you know, I deal with volunteers all the time. You know, they're giving of their time. They have families, they have a life. And I know that, you know, they can't be with me 100% of the time. And so if they go on holiday, if they get sick, if they get called into work, then I have to modify. Then I have like, okay, well, you know what? Mr. Harold's not here today, so then I'm going to have to put his 2 kids in this other room, and then this room is going to, you're going to have 2 today as opposed to 1. And so I just kind of rework it that way.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do you have like a sign-up sheet for the parents to say we would like to attend, and then also do you have like an attendance, like you know what kid is coming what week to make sure that volunteer is maybe available for that child?
Yes. So pre-COVID, everything is pre-COVID, post-COVID. So pre-COVID, we were running 5 services a week. So what I would do is I would assign a service to my family. So basically I would tell them, what service are you more likely to come to? And they would tell me, well, I'm going to come to, you know, Saturday night service. I'm like, okay, great. I guarantee you a spot for that service. So then that tells me, okay, Saturday night, I have 15 families. Okay, I need probably at least, you know, 22 volunteers plus 3 leaders. So I'm probably going to need about 25 people that night. And that's how I'll gauge it. But I tell them, but if you decide to come to another service, there's a possibility there's not going to be any space, because I'm working with the numbers that you guys have told me, my families have told me this is the service. Now, not to say that, you know, they could come and it's like, you know what, I have family coming in from out of town and I'm going to, you know, I'd like to attend a Sunday service. Great. You gave me notice. That gives me an opportunity to go in and move people around and make space for them.
Sure.
But, you know, I can't, but if you come without telling me, I can't guarantee you. So post-COVID, we reduced the number of services. So now we have 3 services. And so now I had to condense my families from 5 to 3. So what I did is I have a registration now. So basically my families register every week. So on Monday mornings at 9 a.m., registration opens for the following Sunday. And so, and registration closes Friday evening. So you get a whole week to register. And it's based on, you know, how much space I have. I only have 4 rooms. I can't take 50 kids, you know, so it's first come, first serve. So,
Sure.
you know, I have one of my services I had one of my parents call me and it's like, Norma, it's 9:04 and you're full already. And I'm like, I don't know. You got to, you know, sign in at 9 because, so some of my services fill up really quick. And then some of them, you know, have more space, but they have that ability to go in and choose what service they want to attend. And then I have a roster like, okay, I know who's coming. Oh, Johnny's coming. Okay, I'm going to need Harold. I need you for Johnny because I know he's a runner and I know this, or I know he's aggressive. I also pair up, you know, volunteers based on their ability and the kids. So, you know, I necessarily wouldn't put myself with a teen that's super aggressive. Probably not going to do anything. I'm not going to be able to accomplish much. I'm going to probably put a big, strong guy with another lady. Now, I will bring another gentleman with me. I don't ever put 2 males together in a classroom. It's always either 2 females or a male and a female. Or I could have 2 males and a female, but there's got to be a female all the time in there. Also, males do not do any diaper changing or assist in the bathrooms. But I do try to match the volunteers' abilities. to the child. Or if there's a special connection, you know, I like to foster that too. So if I know like the volunteer made a special connection with a child, I try to foster that and try to be more intentional about putting them, you know, together.
Awesome. I think our last question, are there any, what do you call it, like testimonials or success stories from children who entered Champions Club and after a few years you've seen changes in behavior or in symptoms or stuff like that?
All the time.
Wow.
All the time. I've also been able to successfully permanently transfer kids to typical classrooms. Like I've worked with behaviors and they no longer need to be with me. Wow. And so those are always great success stories, because that's the hope that I give every parent. It's like, you know, the goal is to move them out. The goal is let's work on, let's identify the behaviors, let's come up with a plan, let's deliver the plan, and then let's work on moving them out. And so when I can successfully do that, that's huge. But yeah, I mean, I've seen, you know, just the other, maybe not the other day, but this year, probably a few months ago, I had a teen, and for the most part, he'd been nonverbal. And LJ is, 14. And so, you know, and what they say is if you don't get your verbal skills by the age of 12, chances are you won't get them. So if a child is not speaking by the age of 12, it's unlikely that he'll gain any language skills past that. So LJ is 14, and I'd never heard him speak, just never did. Well, one day, and he's in our teen room, obviously, and one day, again, our teens go into service for praise and worship, and then as soon as pastor comes out, then we bring them into class for their lesson. So, and this is when pastor comes out. So they came back to class. We live stream in the classroom also, because again, I want them to start identifying with pastor in the hopes that one day they'll be able to sit in service and they'll be able to recognize him. And so pastor does a declaration like I mentioned that Connor did. And so everybody was doing the declaration, and one of my volunteers happened to walk by LJ, and he was saying the declaration. Wow. So he had verbal skills all along. He just chose not to speak. So and Grandma would drop him off all the time. And so when we told Grandma, I mean, there was not a dry eye. Like, she was so elated. I felt like she was going to faint because she hadn't heard him speak either. And so for her to know that not only did he speak, but his first words were, you know, words of a declaration, wow. That was really, really special. But yeah, I mean, I've seen kids learn life skills, you know, communicate more effectively. Every one of my kids I've seen just change dramatically, whether it be in behavior, whether it be in their understanding, their participation. I mean, I think the biggest thing you'll see when you're consistent in this ministry is you'll see the change in behaviors. Because initially, you know, all of that, like I said, the anxiety and all of that plays a huge part when they first come. But the more consistent and the more structure you have, you'll start seeing those behaviors either change or just completely go away. And so that's kind of like the really good testimonies. But yeah, I have so many of them that I feel like every weekend something happens, you know, something amazing happens, you know, with our kids. So I feel like it's just God's way of, you know, telling us like, you know, keep up the great work. So.
I just want to repeat something we mentioned yesterday for those who didn't hear. How can you be certain that a child that is nonverbal, for instance, how do you know if they accept the Lord or not? And you're not going to know because they can't confess, they can't tell you. And you mentioned yesterday, we do everything we can, what the Lord expects from us, and then we leave the results up to Him. So we minister to every child with the knowledge every child needs to be born again. Every person needs to be born again. But how they respond is not our responsibility. And I think just last question and then we are finished. What keeps you motivated? When times get tough and children are difficult and parents are difficult and your energy tank is low and you have your personal stuff going on, because everyone can agree with me, you are oozing out passion for these kids. And I just see God's heart when I listen to you. But what keeps you motivated?
One, my kids, and I don't want to cry because I always cry when I think about my kids. Take a deep breath. Okay, so definitely my kids, and then I think the families. I've seen such a change in my families. They come in, and sometimes I laugh at my families because they'll come in and their kids are like not having a good day. And most families are like, I am so sorry, like, oh, this. No, my family's like, here you go. He's all yours. I'm out, So, and I love that. I love that they trust us. And I love that they know that, you know what, I can go in there and I know they're not going to call me out just because my son's having a bad day. I know that I'm going to go in and I don't have to worry about anything. But I love my kids. Like, I really, really do. Every chance I get, I sneak in the classroom and, a lot of times, I spoil. So I try not to go in the classroom because then I end up undermining what the teachers are doing. But it's just my kids and just the impact that I see, the changes that I see, and just what an incredible ministry this is. And just, I'm honored by the opportunity that God chose me, somebody that didn't know anything about special needs, and that he taught me so much, and that, I don't even know if you can say I was prepared for it, because I tell everybody, God was really sneaky when he called me into this. I came in thinking I was going to work in children's ministry. And then, and this program happened to fall under the kids ministry, but it was kind of in its infancy. And then it began to grow. And so I was just really supposed to just kind of stay there until they hired somebody. That was in my thought was like, okay, I can maintain it. And then I'm like, okay, so where is this person? And and then God kept bringing me, people, and he kept bringing me professionals and training, and everything was coming. Like, I wasn't seeking it out because I didn't know what to seek out. I didn't know what I needed. And so looking back, I really feel like I remember the first days and remember how overwhelmed I was and all the doubt, like, why am I here? Like, I'm definitely not qualified. And but I remember, real clearly, what they say, like, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And, and I just remember God asking me when I was going to do this, he just asked me one thing. He said, just step out of the boat. I was comfortable in my boat. I was so comfortable. Like, the boat did not need to be shaken. But he had other plans. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust you, God. I'm scared to death, but I'm going to trust you. And I felt like, he honored, obviously, me, right, that I was obedient. And so I feel like he made everything so easy. So I remember the first things, in the beginning where I was fearful, but I don't have any recollection of anything that happened in the middle. It's like this happened, and then now I'm here. Like, everything in the middle is just, I can't even explain. And so I just feel like, the more I can help others get to where I'm at, the bigger the impact that we can make. Because we can't do it alone. We're a large church, have a lot of families. But there's not just 300 families in the world. There's millions. And the only way we can do it is together. And so the more people that I can impart this with, the more people that I can share this with, the more people I can equip, is the bigger impact that we're going to have on the families. So that's kind of what keeps me motivated.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed my time here. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
It's fine.
More you talk, more I communicate with us, how he responds to us.
Sure.
Actually, we all are there. After Adam and Eve, we are always there.
Absolutely.
Sure.
How he treats us, I mean, specifically the one that you ignore, in his covenant promise is that he forgets our sins.
Yeah.
Remember them no more.
Mm.
So when you said that, I realized that this is how special God is towards us.
Mm.
And he's actually give us the honor to be like him
Wow.
to kids
Yes.
that are like us.
Yes.
Wow.
I've always felt that.
I want to honor you, but I can be so much out with God.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
With God.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how he treats us.
Yes.
And we can be like reflections.
Mm.
And he's teaching us.
Exactly. Exactly. I've always felt, even before I got into special needs ministry, I'm like, being a parent, God, this is how God is with us. Like we have inside information on how God sees us. We love our kids unconditionally, even though our love cannot measure to God's love, but we at least have a sense of how God sees us. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to repeat for the recording, what he said was the way God works with us after falling in sin. We are all special needs children to God. And he is working on our behaviors. He is working on our triggers. He is showing love, awarding positive behavior, not seeing the negative behavior, but always staying in the room. And I think that is, I also thought about that yesterday, just the amazing heart of God towards us as humans in our fallen nature. And I really appreciate the sentence that you said, what an honor that we can have that part of God's heart and show that to children, because that's the way he looks at us. So I would just like to pray for you and pray for Lakewood and the ministry you guys are running, and that the impact will just be like wave upon wave upon wave going to every corner of the earth. We're so blessed to have been able to connect, and we're very excited for what God's going to do in South Africa, also in Lakewood, and then the rest of the world. Say universe, but we'll stick to the world. Yes. So you can just put your hand out and let's just pray and bless them. Thank you, Father, for people with a heart for you. Thank you that we can clearly see that Lakewood has a heart for people, a heart for families, a heart for children, and thus they have a heart for you. We want to bless them in the name of Jesus. We want to bless them with energy. We want to bless them with resources. We want to bless them with capacity. We want to bless every volunteer that works at that church with a clarity of mind, with all the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Lord, for connecting churches to them. Thank you for spreading this message and spreading these tools that you have revealed to her and to the church. Thank you for, it's almost like oases that people are going to get in their dry and weary place with their children and with their community. And I just pray that all these oases will just pop up everywhere. And thank you, God, that you will nourish the people that serve in this program, that you will give them extra strength, extra capacity, extra love, extra patience, that will never be a deciding factor. Will I be involved or will I not be involved? That will be provided. So thank you, Lord, for providing for parents, teachers, volunteers at churches, medical professionals, providing them an extra boost of Holy Spirit so that they will never become weary in doing the good work and keep on doing the good work. So we bless Norma and her family. Thank you for the sacrifices she has made to serve the body of Christ. And thank you that in the Spirit, we pray that you would lift up her hands, that she will not grow weary in doing good. And we pray for every church and every family that is here today and people that are going to watch online, that the blessing out of this will just go and flow. Thank you for a lot of hope to go with this. And thank you, Lord, that our hearts will always be towards you and to realize that you are you are showing us so much love and patience and support. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. I'll have a blessed day. Thank you so much.